Hey, good evening, everybody out there in YouTube world and around the interwebs, internets, inter something. Anyway, you are tuned in to the debut episode of the Mock and Roll show, where myself and my amazing co-host Damian will talk about all things and nothings fantasy football related. We can't promise that you will gain any knowledge, but we can promise you will gain or lose valuable time. Damian, it's good to see you, my friend.
Hey, good to see you, man. This is a first for me. I've never done a podcast before. We had talked about doing it, and this is interesting. I'm looking forward to talking to you about fantasy football. I think both of us have some pretty strong opinions about it. But let's start with just, I guess, in case anybody cares. I'm sure they probably don't. But in case they do,
listen. Let me step here. Let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about here. Okay? Me. I'm Sean, and I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, Damian, my buddy, my co-host, my pal, we've been friends for many years. We are both avid sports lovers. In fact, we used to huddle around his old computer and watch simulations play of computer football games. That was Fantasy Sports Football Pro 98, I want to say.
It was back there. It was an oldie but a goodie.
Oh my God! But I myself, I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, Bangor, Pennsylvania, and I'm a single dad. I'm a drummer. I'm not saying I'm a good drummer, but and I'm a diehard 49ers fan. This guy is not a Niners fan.
No, I'm a Bears fan, but I'm a Bears fan. I say that sort of with a little bit of pain in my heart, but mostly I'm a mercenary. As you know, I'm a fantasy football diehard through and through. So I go where the players take me, and I am in my spare time, most of my time, I'm a high school teacher. Okay, so you get out of line, I'm going to give you a detention, as you know, and
I'm going to jail.
A new father of a 1-year-old, and we have been friends a long time. I have been playing fantasy football for a decade, which is crazy. Started playing, I was corrupted into the fantasy football world when I was 22, my first job as a newspaper reporter, and pretty much my strategy as a fantasy football player has stayed the same for all 10 years with the exception of one, and that was last year, and it was the worst year I've ever had playing fantasy football. I don't even want to talk about it.
Hold on. Let's talk about your strategy for a second, okay? David's strategy is to take a flyer on everyone and regret it halfway through the season. I think that's fair.
That was my strategy last year. Usually I take flyers on some guys and regret it halfway through the season. Last year I took flyers on everybody and regretted my entire life halfway through the season.
But to be fair, in our league, which just this year is switching over to a keeper league, a 12-team keeper league, it kind of paid off because you did end up with two good keepers, and we can get back to that. I of course ended up with garbage because my whole team was injured. And you made an interesting point, Damon. You said you go where the team takes you. You go where the players take you, right? With respect to the Bears. If I, as a 49ers fan, went where the players took me, it would be to the unemployment line. I would be retired.
You would be the unemployment line. Yes, you absolutely would. I will say that in terms of my strategy for fantasy football, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be self-deprecating, and I'm going to lower myself here because you and I had many conversations just like this last year. Not podcast.
I was just thinking about this.
And every conversation that we had, in every instance where we took a stand on a player, I'm admitting it to the world, to all of our viewers here, which there may not be any, but I'm going to admit it to them.
Let me hear it.
I was wrong about everyone.
And I was.
And you were, what's the opposite of
wrong? Come on, give it to me.
I know I'm an English teacher, but it's not coming to me. You were right about everyone. I was wrong and you were right.
So if you guys learn anything from the debut episode of this show, it's that trust me. Don't trust the teacher.
I will say though that I'm going back to basics this year. I think my advice is more trustworthy. I could be wrong, but last year I sort of went off the reservation. You know, it's like the Amish. It was like my Rumspringa. You know, I left the Amish. You know, I left my family running back. I left what I'm used to doing, and I went off and I did some bad things. But I'm back now. I'm back into the fold. I feel like I know what I'm doing again.
Hey, listen, you got to be careful with that off the reservation talk. You're going to offend the Redskins fans. We know how that's been going.
That's true. That's a very good point. That's fair. That's fair.
Anyway, hey, listen. So you were saying last year, we had our debates and things like that, I made some predictions, a lot of predictions that ended up being right, and you, of course, not being on the better end of that. And what's interesting is, I don't know anybody that does more homework on fantasy football or prepares as much and as hard as you do. And the thing is it's so funny because we, from a strategy point and an informational standpoint, you go out of your way to research. I mean, let's talk about this year. How early did you start this year, honestly? And then I'll get to my point on this. But how early did you start thinking fantasy football this year?
Now, I will say I didn't start quite as early as I started last year, but I started thinking about fantasy football probably toward the end of May this year is when I started to look at rankings and started. But I will admit that throughout the year, especially now that we have a keeper league, from time to time, I'll pop into rotoworld.com. I'll check up on the players. I'm known to do that. I will admit. And you said homework, Sean. A teacher. I assign homework. I like to do my own homework. It's only fair. It's the concept of reciprocity, sir.
Yeah, wait. When you say from time to time, here's the thing. With me, when I look at things from time to time, it's like maybe on a lunch break, and maybe you've texted me 6 or 7 times trying to propose a deal to me in March, right? And I might look something up. When you say from time to time, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that it probably is from time to time. The difference between the two of us is my time isn't waking up in the middle of the night at like 2:37 in the morning because you got a hunch. You know what I mean?
My fantasy football addiction is basically like having a newborn. I am up through the night, taking care of. You got to take care of the fantasy football needs. It just is what it is.
I'm curious to see what happens in your household when the baby starts crying and you wake up with a gut feeling about Joseph Adai. I want to know where the priority lies.
Multitasking, sir. That's where multitasking comes in. Joseph Adai, by the way, that's a throwback right there.
So there
if
you
I
go.
If I woke up with a gut feeling about Joseph Adai, I would have had an even worse year last year than I did.
Please promise me, if you ever wake up with an absurd hunch in the middle of the night, that you will call me just for the sake of entertainment. Oh man.
But let's talk about we talk a little bit about sort of our backgrounds. Let's talk about our philosophies. We said we'd talk a little bit about where we stand. Last year, as I said, I sort of went off into left field. But here's my philosophy in a standard league, even a PPR league. My philosophy has been the same essentially for 10 years, and that is this: I always skew heavily toward running back, even to the point where in the past it's hurt me a little bit where I've taken too many running backs. I have historically been a running back guy. I will say that my philosophy now has shifted a little bit, and now I'm in the realm of valuing wide receivers, not as much as running backs. I don't think they're as valuable, but valuing them more than I have in the past.
Now, not picking on you here, but let's call it like we see it, right? Historically, you've been a running back guy. I remember a time in the not too far back past. Wasn't there a time where you and I were having some kind of a back and forth about taking a certain quarterback early in like the late first, early second round? And if we're going to talk about philosophies, and I didn't say that because I want to hammer on you. Here's the thing. No, listen. Let's be real. You want to talk about philosophies? Here is my golden rule, and I have debated this with people over and over. And I don't care. What was it? 3 years ago, Aaron Rodgers had that like earth-shattering fantasy football year that I think was only rivaled by what was it? Peyton Manning's, fantasy year. The point is this: I have always steadfastly been 100% against drafting a quarterback, not just in the first round, but early. And if you don't mind, I want to talk about that for a second with you, okay? Because the quarterbacks are they put up a ton of points. They typically will put up the most points any given week unless somebody really kind of goes off. Why? Because they have the ball in their hands more than any other player on the offense. I mean, that's fair to say.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, they're going to get the touches, and yes, and depending on your league, you may get bonuses for longer plays. You may not. I think the standard is what? 4 points for a passing touchdown, 6 points for a rushing touchdown in most leagues. I think that's correct, right?
Most leagues, well, I'd say 50-50. A lot of leagues are 4 points for passing touchdowns. I've played in a bunch of those. So it just depends on the league. But I think it's the same either way. I think your philosophy holds either scoring system, honestly.
Yeah, and of course, to anybody that watches this, of course, we welcome your feedback. Reach out in the comments and let us know. But your philosophy. But the thing is I don't believe that you should ever take a quarterback in the first round, and I am really, really strong about not even taking them in the second round. I just feel like you're giving up way too much value. Now, if you're in a keeper league, it's gonna depend obviously on what you have at your disposal as far as what you're keeping, and what your options are. But if you're in a fresh draw, if you're in a fresh draft, by the time you come back to your second pick, if you take a quarterback in the mid first round, late first round, whatever, you're missing out on cream of the crop tier 1 running backs. If you take one in the second round, maybe you've already taken that tier 1 running back, but you're losing out on those big play wide receivers, and then you're going to be stuck with a B+ guy. I just feel like you can make up for it by drafting a mid-tier quarterback, and even if you have to do the quarterback shuffle, not quite like the Super Bowl shuffle, you can last. And I have done that for years, and I've been a perennial playoff contender every year, and I've won my share.
I will take what you said. I'll take that metaphorical ball, and I will dribble it down the court and dunk it as best as I possibly can. I can't dunk, as you know, but I had my Rumspringa last year. I went off the reservation. Apology for Redskins fans. I took Drew Brees in the first round. I developed an unhealthy obsession with him, as you know. Big mistake, messed it up. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to make a blanket statement. You and I are on the exact same page when it comes to quarterbacks. And I think we'll make this official, right? Here's our official advice to anybody who's watching this. When it comes to quarterbacks, unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, do not take a quarterback. I don't care if it's Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if it's Andrew Luck. Do not take a quarterback. I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to say don't take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I would not take Aaron Rodgers or Andrew Luck until the 3rd round. They will never fall there, so I don't even have to worry about it. I'll go even one step further. I won't take a quarterback unless you believe in one of the mid-rounders. You really think somebody like a Tony Romo or a Matt Stafford or whoever, if you really think somebody's going to vault up and to be a top 5, maybe take somebody in the 6th and 7th round. I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to say don't even worry about the position until 8th, 9th, 10th round at all, especially this year. There's so much depth. It's a onesie position. There are so many people who can play. You can get Phillip Rivers in like the 12th round.
I'll tell you what. I like where you're going with that. I agree with almost everything you said, but I'm going to probably jump a round or 2 earlier. Historically speaking, I typically find that I have my most success and least healthy quarterbacks in probably around 6 or 7. I like to fill the rest of my starting lineup, and maybe before my flex, I'll take a quarterback. Or if quarterback's starting to thin out at all, I might take a quarterback. Or if there's no, when it gets to the point where I've got my 2 backs, my 2 wideouts, and my tight end, the next pick for me, so like my 6th pick or 7th pick, it becomes a value-based pick. I'm either going to fill my flex starter or I'm going to take my starting quarterback, whichever one seems to be the better option for me at that point, you know?
That makes sense. But I think we're both on the same page when it comes to quarterback. It's a onesie position. It's really replaceable. And I've heard some people, and I've come more and more on the line of thinking that you can really pull off a lot if you just have, streaming quarterbacks. I mean, you can really just stream quarterbacks and be good to go. There's who are these guys? Is it Davis Maddock? I don't know. I won't even give credit to them because I can't remember their names. But they stream quarterbacks, and they created a Frankenstein quarterback, right? They just took different quarterbacks, Ryan Fitzpatrick against somebody.
They take a piece of Dante Culpepper, a piece of Marcus Russell's gut.
No, seriously. They made a Frankenstein quarterback, and the Frankenstein quarterback finished 6th overall, right below Drew Brees last year. So
that's insane.
It's insane.
Here's something that we should talk about that I probably should have touched on earlier. Again, this is a new show for us. We're gonna work out the kinks, but let's talk about this show. Let's talk about the show. So this is the Mock and Roll show. We're gonna try and put together a weekly broadcast for you guys, usually live via YouTube and Google Hangout and things like that. And then eventually we're looking to get the audio up onto podcasts, so stick around for that. I plan on getting us up on social media, so you'll be able to tweet us and things like that. Tweet us your picks. If you have questions that trying to decide between picks, let us know. We can talk about it here on the show. But what we're going to do is just that. We're going to talk about fantasy football. We're going to talk about the things that are going on. We're going to look at our philosophies. We're going to look at your philosophies. I'd be happy to give you some advice. And maybe you guys can give us some advice, and we can talk about it here. Maybe you, our listeners and viewers, can change our positions. I think it's good for healthy discussion. The other things that we're going to do is we're going to look at the because we focus our main league through ESPN.com. This show will mainly be focused on ESPN.com scoring, ESPN.com rankings. Things like that. So we're going to try and be your source for, or another source for insight for ESPN.com fantasy football leagues. One of the things we're going to feature on this show every week is we're going to look at the top 10 or just a list of 10. So it could be ranks 10 to 20, it could be ranks 20 to 30 or 21 to 30, whatever. But we're going to look at an ESPN.com ranking and discuss those by position this week. Later on in the show, or coming up pretty soon, we're going to talk about the top 10 ESPN running backs as currently listed for the 2015 season, which is upcoming. By the way, Damian, today is actually a holiday. If you don't know, if you weren't paying attention, and I'd be shocked if you weren't. Today officially starts the last month of 2015 without football.
That's right, and that's an exciting thing. Obviously, we're here sitting on July 1st doing a podcast about fantasy football, which pretty much qualifies us as football addicts, I think is safe to say. And I like how you put that we're going to be focused on the ESPN rankings. I will say, when you and I talked about this, there are a lot of people doing podcasts and a lot of people doing very, very good podcasts. I listen to quite a few of them when I'm jogging, when I'm mowing the grass, whatever.
He's actually jogging. The J is silent.
Jogging, yes. You know what? I'm an English teacher, but I'm still learning the language. Thank you for helping me. I will say that there are not any podcast that I'm aware of that focus specifically on one site's rankings. And as we know, if you're doing these leagues, I'm not talking about daily fantasy football, but if you're doing the leagues like we are with your coworkers, with your friends, the fantasy football leagues that most of us do, you're usually on one site for years and years and years and years. And really, when you draft, Sean, you know this, when you draft, the thing that matters is the rankings, because ESPN's rankings are totally different from Yahoo's rankings, are totally different from NFL.com's rankings. And so the rankings are so important, and so we need to focus on one particular site. We play ESPN. We feel like we know what we're talking about with ESPN, and that's what we're going to focus on.
It's also important to focus on who is bringing the beer to your draft party.
This is true
and what they're bringing. I mean, if if they're bringing Coors Light, they can go start a Yahoo League. I'm not interested.
Yes, Yahoo Leagues, for people who drink Coors Light, I agree completely. Apologies to people who play. Actually, I'm in a Yahoo League, so I'm.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm actually in an NFL.com keeper league, which I broke that league, but we've talked about that.
We've talked about that. So let's get to our rankings here. We're at a spot in the show where we can talk about, I think, the top 10 ESPN.com rankings, and what we're going to do is I'm going to go down the ESPN rankings. I know I start a lot earlier than you do with the rankings.
I have not seen this list.
Yeah, you've not seen. So this is really cool. This is like you're sort of like my guinea pig. You're like my test subject here. I get to see what your reactions will be to the ESPN rankings. I, of course, as the complete overachiever, that's probably not the right word. As the complete,
no, you haven't overachieved anything.
I have not overachieved anything.
Wait, what pick do you have this year? Not before you traded. What pick did you have?
I had the first pick, but I traded it down. I did not like the first pick this year.
That's the only thing you overachieved at. No, I'm sorry, that was a wrong choice.
You know what? Listen, I have broad shoulders here. You know, just send me all your bullets here. Let them fly. I already have come up with my top 10 running back rankings. In some cases, they're the same as the ESPN rankings. In some cases, they're different. I'm going to read to you the ESPN rankings, starting with number 1. You're going to tell me what you think the ranking should be. If you agree with ESPN, if you don't, then I'll tell you what my rankings are, and then you can agree.
How close I come to yours. See how close we are.
See how close we are.
All right, I'm in. All right, so this is ESPN's running back ranking.
ESPN rankings as of June 24th. So this has been updated. Was updated last week. It continues to be updated through the season. But as you know, I'm a complete overachiever, and what I've found, Sean, I've found that ESPN rankers, the powers that be, Matthew Berry, Tristan Cockcroft.
You love him.
I know it, Eric Carabell, and Christopher Harris. I know all 4 of them.
Wait, what? I know how much you disagree. If I remember correctly, how much you can't stand Matthew Berry.
I you know what? I think he's a good writer. I don't love his rankings, but it's a
yeah.
Anyway, so I've found that their rankings actually do not change very much throughout the summer. So the rankings as they are now probably are not going to change that much. So this is not just like a dart on the wall. This is probably the rankings that we're going to see really close to when we get to draft times for everybody at the end of August. So here are the rankings. Number 1, are you ready for the number 1 player on the ESPN rankings, which also happens to be the number 1 overall? Actually,
you know what? I would prefer if you start at 10.
You want me to start at 10?
I would prefer that you start at 10. Let's go. Okay. Let's work backwards. Let's work to the top.
Okay. The number 10. So we'll work backwards. Start with 10. The number 10 running back on ESPN.com's rankings is LeSean McCoy.
Okay. Now, we were just talking about LeSean McCoy off the air. We've been talking about him for a couple of days. And here's the thing. When you and I were talking, I understand that they're projected to be a couple of rounds apart. I had pitched to you the idea, one of our friendly little discussions, and I said, how do you feel about LeSean McCoy? And I know you're down on him, like most people are, okay? And I had said to you, well, who do you think is going to have the better year, LeSean McCoy or Frank Gore? And you were kind of on the fence about that. And that'd be fair, right?
Yes and no. I think LeSean McCoy has the better year. I think Frank Gore is the better value. I think they have similar years.
Well, I would agree that I would agree that Frank Gore is a better value. In other words, in terms of where you would be able to pick him for the points that you'll get, yes, which of course is what value is.
If in a vacuum you gave me the choice, I didn't have to give up a pick. I could either have McCoy or Gore. I'd take McCoy.
Okay, that's fair. That's good. That's good. A lot of people are down on McCoy this year. I am up on McCoy. I think last year was an issue of the system. The guy's never had a bad year. He's never really been hampered by injury. I mean, he's never been a problem in Philadelphia. I think they made a huge mistake getting rid of him. And I think that, honestly, I think DeMarco Murray is going to do well, which I'm sure will come to him in this top 10. He's a good back. But I just feel like I feel like the Eagles made a mistake, and I feel like McCoy was arguably going to end up being the best back for Chip Kelly's system. Now, he's with Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan always has a run-first offense. That defense is so important. I don't know how Buffalo's line is going to be versus how good Philly's line is going to be. But I absolutely think that LeSean McCoy belongs in the top 10. And I'm curious to see who's above him. I know one guy that I believe is going to be above him, obviously, that I feel like they're too close. And I don't think McCoy should be at 10. I'll tell you who I think should be at 10 when we get there.
I'm going to give you a minor disagreement with you with McCoy, and it's a minor disagreement. I think McCoy is still in the top 12. I still think he's a running back 1 in 12-team leagues. I actually have him outside my top 10. I have him at 11, so it's not a huge gap. I think my dig on McCoy is I think that well, first of all, he's going to be playing in an offense in Buffalo with a terrible offensive line, one of the worst in the league.
Right.
B, with a terrible quarterback.
But that's
not going to be able to move the ball.
But here's the thing: while in most cases you would say, well, you got to have that quarterback to keep the defense honest. I agree with that 100%. But what I think is because of how Rex Ryan runs his ship, here's what I think. This year is going to be the opportunity for LeSean McCoy to prove that either A, he can carry the load, or B, he needs the team to be successful. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because when he was in Philly and they were successful, their quarterback situation was kind of a mess at times, but still, Cobb showed flashes of greatness that had to keep the defense honest. Vic showed flashes of greatness that at times had to keep the defense honest. They had to watch for him. And so that takes, it's like when Brett Favre was in Minnesota. And I had this argument with my buddy John, so many times preseason. And I ended up being right about this, which was that it didn't matter what Brett Favre could bring to that team as far as an arm goes and how well he could still perform at his age. To me, it was when you put a quarterback under center that has the ability to make plays, whether with his legs or his arm. As a defense, you have to plan around that, and that's going to take at least 1 to 2 guys out of the box. And what did that do for Adrian Peterson? It took 1 and 2 guys out of the box. They weren't sure if they were going to throw it down the field, and he exploded that year. I think the same applied for LeSean McCoy, even with middle-of-the-road quarterbacks. In Buffalo, yes, he's not going to have he's not going to have quarterbacks as talented as he had in Philadelphia, and that line is not going to be as good. So now it's put up or shut up time for LeSean McCoy, and I think that he cares too much about not being a bust and proving that Philadelphia made a mistake. In other words, this year he's playing with a huge chip on his shoulder, and I think we're going to see that he can be the guy. And if not, then he's going to fall off the radar and be a late second, early third round pick next year.
See, here's my take on him, and you and I we're not too far apart on McCoy. So we can move on from him in a minute here because we're close on him. But here's my take on him. You talked about X factors, and I think it always comes down to some degree about X factors. You said chip on his shoulder. I actually have an X factor for him that skews the other way. I do not believe in LeSean McCoy because I think he's a dancer. I think that he doesn't go north-south. I think he's an east-west runner. I think that it can work in certain offenses. I don't see it working in Buffalo where they can't spread the ball. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have an offensive line. I think he's still a running back 1. Okay, I still think that he's going to be a top 12 guy because of volume. I think he's going to get 300 carries. I think he's going to average. Honestly, I would be surprised if he averaged much over 4 yards a carry. I would not be surprised if he was under 4 yards a carry. I don't love him this year. If I saw him and any of the stud receivers are still there, I'm taking the stud receivers ahead of him. Just how I feel.
All right. One last thing before we move on. Here's the thing, Damian. You've known me for many, many, many years, and it is extremely rare for me to do this. But I'm going to take back a lot of what I said. And I'm going to have to agree with everything you just said. And now I'm starting to second-guess myself on McCoy. You made a lot of good points there.
And now I'm ruining your – I knew you never should have talked to me.
No, east-west, you're 100% right. Too much of a dancer, you're right. Just around 4 yards of carry, if that's tough for him, I don't know if I disagree with that. We'll see what happens. All right, who do you got at 9?
ESPN rankings at 9. And again, I'll jump in with where my rankings are. I'm not going to give you my top 10 list. I'll just hop in based on the ESPN rankings. People care about the ESPN rankings. Yeah. Number 9 on ESPN.com running back is the one and only DeMarco Murray. He of the 1,800-yard season last year in Dallas, who now is in Philadelphia. DeMarco Murray is at 9.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to keep this as short and sweet as possible. Philadelphia has a good line. It's not the Dallas line. Dallas's system is different. I don't know. I question whether or not DeMarco Murray will do as well in Chip Kelly's offense because of the way that offense runs. I think DeMarco Murray is still an injury risk, and I think last year was a fluke from an injury standpoint. I think he's injured or has something nagging, especially after the volume of carries he had last year. I think he starts to break down by week 9. I think you're going to see a lack of production after week 10. And I feel like I also feel like but those things aside, I feel like he and McCoy should be ranked higher than someone else that I know is going to be on this list. So I think that DeMarco Murray is going to show signs of breaking down towards the end of the season, but he's still going to be good for your fantasy playoffs. You know, like the early fantasy playoffs. Okay, but I'm going to say 1,300 yards is going to be a struggle this year for him.
I see. I think I actually have DeMarco Murray at 9 as well. So I actually think ESPN got it right, and I'll tell you why I think ESPN gets it right. I see him at 9. I will tell you that I will not own any DeMarco Murray shares unless he really falls. I don't totally not believe in him. Here's why I don't love him. I don't like the injury argument. I think it's fair for Murray. Okay, I think the injury argument is fair for Murray because he had so many touches last year. But I don't like the injury argument for running backs because I've totally ruined myself so many times by saying, oh, he's going to be injured, this guy's going to be injured. You just don't know. These guys it's so variable. Here's why I like him at 9. He is not going to be the Dallas running back next year. No way will he be. He's going to struggle, I think, to get more than, say, 250 carries. I don't think they're going to give him any more than that. They have Ryan Matthews there.
That's the thing. Mr. Collarbone injury is going to steal carries from him.
Ryan Matthews is a very good running back. Ryan Matthews is going to get carries. He's going to get his. The Eagles do have a good line, okay, not nearly what Dallas's line is, and they have a good schedule. The Eagles do not play a tough schedule, so I think that.
Did you feel that? Did you feel that?
No.
I think Ryan Matthews just got hurt again.
Well, you know what? If Ryan Matthews gets hurt, I think that changes things up a little bit. I would have Murray higher, but I think he's only 250 carries max. I think they're going to be good carries. If he stays healthy, dude, I think Murray's going to average 4.5 yards a carry. I think they're going to be quality. He's going to get touchdowns, but for me, he doesn't crack the top 5. 9 is a good place for him, in my opinion.
Number 8.
Number 8 is your boy. I know this is your boy. Should be my boy because I'm a Chicago fan. Is Matt Forte in the ESPN rankings? Underrated.
By the way, I want to be on record as saying the first 3 running backs you have mentioned should all be ranked higher than a guy who is still higher on this list that I am such a hater on. But we'll get to that. And I know you probably know who that is.
I'm not sure I do know who that is, but I will say that.
Go ahead.
For Matt Forte, I won't say that. I'll ask, why do you feel like Matt Forte is underrated, and do you feel like he should be higher than 8?
Absolutely higher than 8. Absolutely higher than 8. Here's the thing, okay? Unless I'm missing something, and please tell me if I am, because you're looking at names and I'm not looking at names, okay? Especially in a PPR league. Who in the top 10 catches more balls and consistently is able to catch balls out of the backfield like Matt Forte? Who? Is there anybody? I mean, I'm really asking you. Is there anybody on the list, name-wise, that is a better pass catcher out of the backfield than Matt Forte?
I'm gonna put an argument out on the table for you right now, and I might talk you out of Matt Forte. You and I talked just a little bit before we came on here, and you said, I asked you, if he's on the board, who would you take? And you said Matt Forte. I'm gonna see if I can talk you out of Matt Forte here. Okay, I actually have Matt Forte at 10. I've seen him a little bit lower. I have him at 10. Now I know you're looking at me like that. I actually thought about putting him even lower than 10.
What?
But here's why. I'm gonna make the case for it. Okay.
Do it.
And let's start off with the biggest thing for me is that they lost Mark Trestman. Under Mark Trestman, who historically throws to the running backs, Charlie Garner, okay? You're talking about Mark Trestman.
Garner.
I mean, all the way back to Charlie Garner, man. Mark Trestman throws to running backs. Matt Forte got, I think, upwards of 100 targets. I think he caught like 90 passes last year. Matt Forte now has John Fox. John Fox is not a one running back guy. They will rotate in some guys. Listen to this. Matt Forte received 92% of the Bears' snaps last year. That is going to regress. There is no way that guy gets 92% of the snaps. He's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 years old. Actually, I don't know what his birthday is. That would be creepy if I knew that. He's going to be 30. Okay.
I'm impressed.
He's getting older, and he's averaged fewer and fewer yards per carry every year for the last 3 years. Matt Forte is on a train to irrelevance. Now let me back that up a second.
Ooh.
I still see him as a running back one. Okay, I'm not moving him out of my rankings, but I will not own any shares of Matt Forte. I will not own any shares of DeMarco Murray. I will not own any shares of LaShawn McCoy this year.
Okay, does Matt Forte get 1,200 yards rushing this year?
I think he does.
Does he get 500 yards receiving this year?
Wait, let me walk that back a step. I think he gets 1,100 yards rushing.
Wait. Okay, but he's clearly over 1,000 yards.
I think he gets 600 yards receiving.
Okay, so you're talking to me about between 17 and 1,900 all-purpose yards. 17 and 1,800 all-purpose yards.
Your math is not good, but yes.
No, wait. If he gets over 1,100 yards and he gets over 600 yards, it's 1,700 yards.
My math is not good, but yes.
Okay. So that being said, if you're telling me that the guy is going to have over 1,700 all-purpose yards, call E-Trade. I'm buying stock.
Okay.
Buying on Matt Forte.
Fair enough.
Fine. Now, number 7.
Both of our math skills are going off the rails.
Woo!
Number 7 is a guy who fascinates me, and I can't wait to hear what your take is going to be on him. He's so interesting to me this year. Number 7 is C.J. Anderson.
C.J. Anderson. All right. Well, C.J. Anderson, first of all, is higher on this list than I expected. And here's why. Now, from my standpoint, I would drop C.J. Anderson down to probably I would handcuff him in the rankings to LaShawn McCoy. So if LaShawn McCoy is like 9 or 10 on my list, I'm putting C.J. Anderson at like 10 or 11. I think he's overrated. I think he looked great last year. I think he's a great talent. But here's what I know. I know that I think C.J. Anderson is going to be your number one guy the same way that Sean Marino was. It's that it's not his job to own. It's his job to lose, and they're going to rotate in backs. I think they're still going to rotate backs. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I know it's going to make me sound really fantasy ignorant, but they still have Monte Ball, right? They still have Monte Ball. So Monte Ball is going to be back. He's going to be healthy, knock on wood. And I feel like he's going to be given a chance to take some of those carries. They didn't draft him where they drafted him for them to say, you got injured 1 year, so we're going to kind of forget about you. I think Monte Ball is still going to get his split of the carries. I think almost to the total of 40%, 45% of those carries. I don't think the Broncos go with a one-back system. I also think that Manning this year is going to be the beginning of the decline for Peyton Manning. Statistically, the fact that the guy was so on the fence after the season about what he was going to do about playing tells me that for the first time in his career, aside from when he had that neck injury, because even when he had that neck injury, he was 100% pushing to come back. He wanted to come back. He wanted to make it happen. He felt like he still had it in his body. He had to get his arm right and make sure his neck was good. This is the first time that I saw him question or even consider what to do. I think that I'm not buying 100% on C.J. Anderson. Let's put it this way. I think if you have him in a keeper league, this was your opportunity to trade him and upgrade your spot in your draft or upgrade your stock elsewhere in your keeper league. I think he's a great value keeper, and that's about it. Let me tell you why I completely disagree. Now, I'm going to say I completely disagree. ESPN has him at 7. I also have him at 7, but I'm considering moving him up ahead of at least the next guy on the list. C.J. Anderson, for me, is a boom-bust guy, okay? A lot of what you said was valid, especially the Peyton Manning thing. I think this year the Broncos have said it. They put it right out there, and I believe it. They are going to be transitioning to a run-first offense. They now have Gary Kubiak.
if you remember, Sean, you said Monte Ball the carries. I'm going to give you 2 reasons why Monte Ball will not get 40% of the carries. I'm going to give you 2 reasons why Monte Ball will not even get 25% of the carries. I think Monte Ball will get 20% of the carries. I think Ronnie Hillman will get 10%. I think C.J. Anderson has 70% of these carries in a run-first powered offense. Here's why. One is talent. C.J. Anderson is fundamentally different from Monte Ball. Monte Ball is a slighter guy. He doesn't move piles. He's not even as quick as C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson is a stud. He is a powerful, quick running back. He is a stud. Here's the second reason. Gary Kubiak, my friend. Who do you know last year who never had done anything in his career, not even close to what C.J. Anderson did in 8 games last year? By the way, C.J. Anderson in 8 games was the best fantasy running back last year. Who had Gary Kubiak last year and who was a stud who nobody was thinking about at all?
Who was it?
Justin Forsett.
No.
Zone blocking. Gary Kubiak is a running back monogamist, my friend. He's a one-man man. He wants one guy.
Hold on. I have one big counter to that. You know what statistic I want to see at the end of this year? They want to switch to a run-first offense? All right. Let me tell you why that's really great in theory. Who do you know that audibles more at the line than Peyton Manning?
It's true. Yeah,
I want to see the number of plays that Peyton Manning has audibled out of a run into a quick pass at the end of the season.
It's true. It's true. Here's what I'll say. For me, C.J. Anderson is worth the gamble in the late first round. If it was me, I would take C.J. Anderson and not even think twice about it. It's a risk. I'll give you that because you don't know for sure. But if he pans out, he is a top 3 guy.
I'm going to go proven commodity here. I'm taking Matt Forte over C.J. Anderson. I'm taking DeMarco Murray over C.J. Anderson. I'll take C.J. Anderson over LaShawn McCoy.
Fair. Next. And you bring up proven commodity. I'm going to give you a proven commodity and see how you feel about him. Number 6, Arian Foster.
That's the guy. I hate Arian Foster. Screw him. That guy is nagged by injury every year. Every year. And what does he do? He'll have your occasional blow-up-the-world game that stacks up your fantasy points and makes you think, oh, my God, thank you for not ruining my entire season. Okay, he's in a horrible offense. They lost their best wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins, I get at this point in his career, is better than Andre Johnson was, but there's nothing proven there. Their quarterback situation has been a train wreck. You know what I mean? Ryan Fitzpatrick. Is Ryan Fitzpatrick still the quarterback? I'm pretty sure he is.
No. Ryan Fitzpatrick is elsewhere. Their quarterback is a good question. I think
you can't even tell me.
Oh, I can tell you, Brian Hoyer.
Okay. Oh, Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer. Oh, how silly of me to forget.
Brian Hoyer.
Here's my thing, right? Now, by the way, I just want to say to the people that are watching this show, me not knowing where these players are doesn't tell you about anything about my fantasy knowledge. What it tells you is I haven't started my homework yet like this guy has. Right? So that's my defense there. Listen, going back to the Brett Favre conversation, going back to what I talked about with the Eagles offense conversation, here's my thing, right? Your defensive game planning against the Houston Texans, what are you game planning against? You're not game planning against Brian Hoyer. You're not hardcore game planning against DeAndre Hopkins because, oh yeah, Brian Hoyer, right? They don't have Owen Daniels anymore, right? So you stack 8 in the box, 9 in the box. I mean, you don't even have to drop a safety deep. I think Arian Foster is a bust this year. Now, not a complete bust in the sense that like he doesn't do garbage, but I think he finishes this season outside of the top 8 fantasy running backs, statistically speaking, because he had several years in a row where they worked him to the bone with carries. And then what did you see? He started to break down. He was having injuries. He had a DeMarco Murray-like year, kind of with carries a couple of years ago. And the next year, his back was hurting him. His hammy was hurting him. You know what I mean? His ankle was hurting him. His foot was hurting him. And the guy couldn't stay healthy. I think they put too much on him this year. And I think he comes up lame. I do. I think he comes up lame. And I think it's before fantasy playoff time that he's just injury riddled. I don't think you have a good year out of him this year. I think he belongs just. It's tough for me to put him above 9.
I have him at 6. I agree with the ESPN rankings here. I'm gonna disagree with you. Okay, I will agree with you.
Disagree with me? Why not?
I'm gonna disagree with you. I will agree with you about the offense. Okay, they don't have a great quarterback. I think Hopkins is good, but their offensive line is much better than, for instance, Buffalo's offensive line. Their defense is also excellent, but so is Buffalo's. But here's the big thing for me on the Texans. They play an easy schedule, okay? And that always, to me, that always gets underrated every year, especially with running backs. They play an easy schedule. And here's the thing. The 4th highest ranked running back last year in standard scoring in our league, Arian Foster. Guess how many games he missed, even with missing 4 games?
But our league is different because our league has long play bonuses.
It's true, but he still scored an average of almost 20 fantasy points every game he played. He's not a boom or bust player. Every game that he is healthy, he's an injured player, but every single game he's healthy, he wins you weeks.
How old is that now? Isn't he over 30?
29.
29. He's right there.
Hey, you know who else was 29?
Don't even talk to me about Adrian Peterson.
Marshawn Lynch.
Oh, Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, but Marshawn Lynch is one of the best offenses in the league.
It's true. It's true. Arian Foster, number 6, agree to disagree. Number 5, this is number 5 ESPN rankings.
Eddie Lacy.
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch.
I feel like we're going to agree on Marshawn Lynch. I have a good feeling.
Here's a fun non-football fact for you. You remember Bobby Bonilla?
I saw this today.
Bobby Bonilla, by the way, you're talking about Marshawn Lynch, and I'm going to talk about the Seahawks offense, and then we're going to have to talk about Russell Wilson. Do you know that Bobby Bonilla will make more this year from the Mets, who he hasn't played for since, I think, 2001 or 1999? He'll make more this year than Russell Wilson has in his career.
That's embarrassing for the Seahawks organization.
Yeah. Well, that's the rookie scale. You know what I mean? Okay.
Pay the guy.
Skittles, beast mode.
Number 5.
I'm a diehard 49er fan. I should absolutely despise and hate everything about Marshawn Lynch, and I do, except when it comes to fantasy football. Last year, I was a little bit down on Marshawn Lynch. This year, I'm changing my tone. I think Marshawn Lynch is back with a vengeance. I think he will be beast mode. And here's why. You want to talk about schedules. One of the toughest defenses in the NFL the last several years is no more. And that belongs to those guys over there, my San Francisco 49ers. Facing that team twice a year puts Marshawn Lynch in a bit of a gives him a little bit of a hamstring when you're talking about competing against league-wide defenses. He's got to play one of the best running defenses twice a year. And if you think about it, if you take out those 2 games over the last several years and you replace it with a lesser defense, I mean that's ridiculous what his numbers would have been. I think Marshawn Lynch's stock goes up this year. I am perfectly fine with him at number 5. I am expecting a big year out of him, and I think he is going to run roughshod over the NFC West and anyone else that gets in his way.
I'm going to totally agree with you on this one. We're actually going to agree on one. I actually have Marshawn Lynch at 3 on the running back rankings. I think 5 is too low for him. I don't think he has a better year this year than he had last year. I think he does the exact same as he did last year, which would make him awesome, which would put him at number 3 or number 2. I think that, yes, schedule is definitely a big thing. He lost an important offensive lineman. He lost Max Unger to the to the Saints, but he got Jimmy Graham, who's going to spread that offense open. Who do you cover in that offense? Marshawn Lynch is going to be beast mode again this year. If you took him at 1 overall, I'd say good.
I will say one thing. You bring up a good point with Jimmy Graham, and I'm going to say this: the addition of Jimmy Graham could either be the best thing or the worst thing to happen to Marshawn Lynch. Because if they find a rhythm and they really start throwing the ball to Graham and they start putting it up, expect more touches to be taken away in lieu of the Jimmy Graham offense. So let's see what happens there.
I'm not worried about it because I think he's still going to get it at the goal line.
100%. 100%. So I'm fine with Marshawn Lynch, and I will say that he could even go a little bit higher. I don't know if I'd take him as high as 1, 2, and 3, but I definitely think I could see him bumping up to 4 this year.
I have Marshawn Lynch at 3, as I said. Number 4 on ESPN rankings is a guy that I do not agree with at number 4, but we'll see what you have to say. Adrian Peterson.
Adrian Peterson is the number 1 pick in fantasy football for me this year. Who do you know that has more of a reason to be pissed off and want to own the NFL this year than Adrian Peterson? I mean, seriously, who do you have? What?
I said Tom Brady.
Oh, Tom Brady. He'll cheat to own them. No, but seriously, I mean, why would anybody bet against Adrian Peterson? And nobody can tell me anything here. Adrian Peterson is the modern day Barry Sanders because nobody has done more with less in fantasy football than him, with maybe the exception of Tom Brady, because Tom Brady always has the most garbage. You know, with all due respect, Edelman's okay and whatever. But listen, I feel like every single year they take another weapon away from Tom Brady just to say, hey, we just want to see how good you really are. You know, we should make things easier for you, but instead we're going to make things harder. And it's not like we're taking something away and adding it elsewhere on our team. We're just going to take something away, and that's it. So anyway, with Adrian Peterson, I mean, you know, he had a rough go there at quarterback for a while after Favre, and I feel like Teddy Bridgewater could finally do some things for Minnesota. I'm glad they got rid of Christian Ponder. I think that Teddy Bridgewater is exciting, and he showed that he can make some plays for that team. So for me, Adrian Peterson has got to be number 1. Let's put it this way: Adrian Peterson hasn't done anything to lose his fantasy value. From my standpoint, what has he done to lose his value?
You and I, this is the second one we agree completely on. He is also my number 1 overall player. I'm going to go even a step further with that and really take what you said. Adrian Peterson, for the first year in his entire career, except when Brett Favre was there, okay, so for the first year since Brett Favre has been there, he has a legitimate offense. Teddy Bridgewater's in his second year. Teddy Bridgewater, the kid can play quarterback. He's a good quarterback. They added a piece in Mike Wallace. You don't have to love Mike Wallace. He'll still stretch the offense.
I think his stock goes up this year. Big.
And last year, guess what? 3 offensive linemen on the Vikings were injured. They come back healthy. Plus, they got help this year. Plus, think about this for a second. Adrian Peterson had a year off to rest. And on top of everything else, it's his first full year with Norv Turner, who throws the ball to running backs. You may remember a guy named LaDainian Tomlinson who played under Norv Turner. Adrian Peterson is going to be a beast this year.
I'm going to say, remember what DeMarco Murray had last year?
1,800 yards and a lot of touchdowns.
I'm calling 1,800 yards plus for Adrian Peterson this year with at least 20% fewer carries than DeMarco Murray had.
I'm totally on board with that. I think Adrian Peterson is going to be a game changer this year. And as we're talking, I'm thinking, man, I traded the number 1 pick. I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably ruined my life again. I will say though that the other side of it, and the reason that I don't like the top part of the draft this year is because you can make a case for Adrian Peterson. You can make a case for a few of the other guys. Adrian Peterson could be an absolute beast. There's still a little risk there. He's 30 years old. You don't totally know what he's going to do.
Listen. I got to cut you off here, okay? Because here we go. Adrian Peterson, number 1, no risk, all reward. The guy's back. He's healthy, and he is hungry. I mean, that dude wants to crush people this year. And now he has said he is more set than ever on breaking Emmitt Smith's all-time record. Emmitt Smith, hands down number 1 running back in fantasy this year. Give me your number 3.
Number 3 pick on ESPN rankings is Jamal Charles.
Wait, time out. Are you telling me that they have Eddie Lacy at 2?
No.
Is he 1?
Yes.
Oh my God! Yeah, what the hell? Wait, I'm sorry. I know. Who's number 2?
Number 2 would be Le'Veon Bell.
I'm okay with that. But okay. Let's just let's just summarize these top 3. Okay.
Yeah.
It should be Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, Le'Veon Bell, or Marshawn Lynch, and then Le'Veon Bell or Marshawn Lynch, and then Eddie Lacy. That's what I think right there.
You
I think
so?
I do. I like Lacy, but Lacy hasn't shown me enough to say that he's going to be, aside from his dreadlocks, that he's going to be the same kind of yardage back and touchdown back as Marshawn Lynch because of things that are out of his control, okay? I like Eddie Lacy. I think he's one of the most talented backs in the NFL. When the Packers drafted him, I said, oh, my God, this is the first time that they've had a legitimate running back in longer than I can remember. Since Dorsey Levens had one good showing. You know what I'm saying? So here's my thing, right? It's not Eddie Lacy's fault that he's not going to produce like Marshawn Lynch and like Adrian Peterson and like these other backs. It's
right.
He has a good problem, and that's that he has Aaron Rodgers, and he has Randall Cobb, and he has Jordy Nelson. You know what I mean? And they could even drag Jermichael Finley's injured self back onto the roster. And do you know what I'm saying? There are too many weapons in that offense, and I feel like that hampers him. For as talented as that guy is, I think that he's going to have a combined offense only because I don't see him having a ton of passing yards, even though he catches the ball out of the backfield. I think he's high on touchdowns, but I think he struggles to get 1,400 yards of combined offense this year.
I think that's fair. I have Eddie Lacy at my number 2. I have ESPN rankings has Jamal Charles at 3. I actually disagree with Jamal Charles. I have Charles at 5. I think they start to really limit his touches more this year. I still think he's going to be an amazing guy. He is a once in a generation talent. The problem is that he's still small. He's a small guy. They have Niall Davis to back him up. Niall Davis he's not going to get 40% of the carries, obviously. He'll get 30. Jamal Charles, Andy Reid knows he's got to be careful with Jamal Charles. They want him for the next couple of years. He has to limit his touches. Same deal as Eddie Lacy, actually.
Well, let me say this from a fantasy standpoint, from a health standpoint, from an aging standpoint, from a touches standpoint. I think right now, I believe that Jamal Charles is by far the more talented back, okay? But I'm just going to say, when you take into consideration all the things that you just said, which are the same things that I said about another back earlier in this discussion, here's what I think. I think Jamal Charles and Arian Foster, from a fantasy perspective, are the same type of back, but I would take Jamal Charles over Arian Foster.
I think that's fair. Yeah, okay. And I actually have them ranked one spot apart.
Le'Veon Bell. Let's talk about Le'Veon Bell for a second and then wrap this up. Le'Veon Bell is a guy who's really intriguing this year. Obviously you're going to lose him for the first several games, but I don't think that really matters because I think when he comes back, he's going to be the spark that Steelers offense is going to need. I think that Steelers offense struggles mightily without him. And I feel like when he comes back, he's going to be another guy who's going to be hungry. He's going to be 3-4 weeks healthier, whatever, than all of the other running backs that have already started taking hits, started getting beat up. So he's going to be 4 weeks, more. Is it 4 weeks he's out?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. He's going to be 3 weeks more fresh come fantasy playoff time than any other back in the league. I think Le'Veon Bell is a buy. I think you're safe to take him at 2 if you really, really want to. Depending on how your team is built and what you have. But I love Le'Veon Bell this year. I think and you and I have talked about this, I think if Le'Veon Bell, it's tough because I'm so high on Adrian Peterson this year. I think if Le'Veon Bell wasn't suspended, he is a borderline first pick in the fantasy draft this year.
I think if he's not suspended, you have to take him at 1. He's safer than Peterson. I mean, he's 24 years old. He is completely game script does not phase him. He catches a ton of passes. Even if he doesn't get a touchdown, you're getting 15 points out of him because he just racks up yards. He's like a pinball, and he's also, I think, arguably the most talented running back in the game right now. Peterson probably still has a year left of it, and Lynch too. I still give it to those guys, but he's going to be there. He might take it over this year. If he wasn't suspended, I'd take him. I just can't. I don't know. I just can't do it and lose 3 games with him. I just think it's unless you're really confident that you can go potentially 0-3, especially because nobody else has anybody on bye. I have him at 4. I would take him at 4, but it would make me nervous.
All right. Well, hey. So there we go. So there's our first countdown list. I think that was fun. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty good. We didn't disagree.
Very knowledgeable, by the way.
Yes.
Very knowledgeable.
You've opened my eyes on a couple of people actually. Namely, I'm kicking myself a little bit for giving up the first pick, because the more I think about it, the more I think Adrian Peterson is going to be a beast. I just hate the people at the turn. I just hate those people.
All right, listen, let's get to something that we call the mock and roll. Hey, that's weird. Isn't that the name of this show? Yeah, it is the name of the show. We couldn't come up with anything more creative. So every week we're going to have the mock and roll. We're going to take two guys that are right around the same place, on the draft sheet for their position, and we're going to talk about them in a real quick, fast-paced style. We're going to make arguments for or against both guys, and then really it's up to you who you want to take if you're faced with this this choice. So for the first mock and roll, we've decided to talk about Joique Bell and Joseph Randle. Joique Bell, of course, the running back for the Detroit Lions. And then the other guy, Joseph Randle, there we go, running back for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so Damian, do you want me to go first?
You go first. Yeah, you go first.
Here we go. 30 seconds. All right, when you're talking about Joique Bell versus Joseph Randle, here's what I think you're looking at. I think you're looking about opportunity versus a steal. I look at Joique Bell as a guy who's going to have a lot of opportunity, an opportunity to not lose his job. Okay, Amir Abdullah has looked great in practice since Bell has been injured. Bell is coming back, even though he was hampered by injury and has been hampered by injury so far this offseason, saying that he's going to rush for 1,200 yards. I don't know if he's going to get 1,200, but I think the guy's going to get a bulk of touchdowns no matter what Abdullah has. I know Bell's going to be the guy at the goal line, and I think Joseph Randle is not a steal. I think the only thing Joseph Randle steals is perfumes from department stores, and he gets arrested just like he did. I think Darren McFadden is going to give him a run for his money, even though he's trying to stay off the injury list himself. But I'm taking Joique Bell all day over Joseph Randle because I don't think Joseph Randle is anything like DeMarco Murray. And even with that good line, I think they realized how much they lost by letting DeMarco Murray walk.
All right, I'll give you my counter argument here. I'm taking Joseph Randle all day over Joique Bell, and here's why. Joique Bell, I think, is fine. He said he could rush for 1,200 yards. I think 1,200 yards is his absolute ceiling. Joique Bell has never averaged over 4 yards a carry in his entire career. He's coming back from injury. I think he'll maintain the starter's role, but to me, it's opportunity cost. Yes, Joseph Randle might be a bust. Yes, Joseph Randle might not get as many touches as Darren McFadden, but that is the absolute best offensive line, and if he hits for 1,800 yards.
Watch out, Joseph Randle's going to steal your shirt if you're not looking.
He might do that too.
Stole a pair of men's underwear too.
It's all fair in love and fantasy football.
I guess so. Hey, listen, Damian, I want to thank you so much for wanting to do this. For bringing this up. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you had a good time.
I had a very good time. You've been a wonderful date.
I didn't dress up, but I definitely didn't dress or undress. So I mean that's a plus for everybody.
I combed my hair, so.
And you know what? You did a fine job, by the way. Whoever's your barber, you got to let me know. But seriously, I want to thank everybody that has the opportunity to check this out. We're going to try and do this once a week. Please feel free to comment, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the videos. Like us, give us your thumbs up, things like that. Stay tuned. We'll get some big changes here. We'll get on social media. We'll get on our Instagram, and we'll get a Twitter set up. But tweet us or comment us your picks. Let us know what guys you're stuck on, and we'll give you our 2 cents. Maybe we'll make it our mock and roll that week. But we want to hear from you guys, and please help us out. This is a brand new project, a brand new show. So share it, show us some love, and listen. If you hate it, let us know what you hate. Let us know what you love. But we would love to hear from you, and we thank you for taking the time to watch this. So on behalf of myself and Damian, thank you guys for checking out the Mock and Roll show. We will be back next week. And do you have a position for next week that we're going to count down?
We are going to be talking wide receiver next week.
My favorite, fantasy wide receivers, and I'll tell you why that is. Thank you guys again. Have a great week, and get your cheat sheets ready. We'll see you.